Hi, my name is Kristen and this is Kristen Craves Books. So I saw that Mara from Books Like Whoa created this tag and I really enjoyed watching her video this year, so I will leave that linked down below. But I'll be honest, I really felt called out by it because she's done so well with catching up on series. She's like a series reader and it's so fun to see her list and answer all these questions. And then I was looking about the questions for me and I can answer them, but a lot of them are for first books in a series, a lot of them are for duologies, and I kind of have to twist some of this a little bit. And then there's a question I have to skip entirely, which is really sad because one of my goals for the year and for every year is to catch up on series, but I really don't have like a practical plan for how to do that. So that's something I want to work on throughout the rest of December, come up with a plan of how I can be better at this in 2023 and how I can really become a series reader. That's a discussion for another time, but I feel like part of it has to do with just who I am as a reader, but also content wise, because I feel like when I'm reading series I'm just talking about the same series over and over again, but I actually don't think you would mind that if it was a series I was interested in. So I just have to get over that hurdle, plan that all out better. I even did the summer of sequels this year, completely failed at that. I did read a few sequels, but a lot of them didn't go well. Never updated on on all of that or anything. So 2023, let's cross our fingers that it's a better year for series. But I'm gonna do this tag just to hold myself accountable, call myself out a little bit, and hopefully motivate myself. So let's do this. The first question is, what is the best series that you caught up with this year that is still a work in progress? And I'll be honest, I haven't caught up on many series this year, or any that wasn't a graphic novel series. I have made dents in a couple of series, but I haven't caught up on series that are still in progress. I've caught up on series that are finished, but not ones that are still in progress. So the series that I came up with here is actually Saga, the graphic novel series. And this is the series that made me realize I love sci-fi graphic novels. That is like my happy place when it comes to graphic novels. That is what I love. This series is really out there. It's kind of like a Romeo and Juliet retelling, but in space, between warring planets, these two falling in love, having a child, and it becomes really intense and heartbreaking. There's lots of like sexual content as well. I would recommend looking up some of the illustrations, but it is a good time. It is so creative. And I read up until volume 8, and then volume 9 came out. I was told it was devastating. I was going to read it, but then the authors announced they were going on hiatus for a few years, and they did, and volume 10 just came out. So I finally got to volume 9, and 10 broke my heart. Everybody was right. I was crushed, devastated. I didn't realize like a graphic novel series could be that emotional, but it got me. So that is definitely the best series that I'm caught up on, and as far as I know, we have a few more volumes coming out in that, and I need them. I need answers. So yeah, I highly recommend that series. It is a good time, deserves all the hype that it gets in my opinion. The next question is, what is the best work in progress series that you're still catching up with? Which is easier for me because that is what I'm doing. What is the best completed series that you're still catching up with? And I went for one that is a work in progress, and that is Baking Bad by Kim M. Watt. You've probably heard me talk about this a lot recently. I'm currently listening to the second book, which is You'll Be Sorry, and it's a Christmas book and I'm loving it. It's so sweet. And Baking Bad is a cozy mystery with dragons. So it's like a cozy fantasy but has that murder mystery vibe to it. And if you love like Legends and Lattes, I'm guessing anything by Olivia Atwater. I just read Small Miracles by her. It's that vibe. It's what we're all kind of seeking this year. This is it, and it's so underrated, such a hidden gem. This is self-published. There are like 7 or 8 books in the series. The author keeps putting them out. They all have really punny titles. I think the third one's called Game of Scones or something like that. And they're just so fun. They're like Regency, and it's following this women's institute where in this first one, a vicar is killed and these women are kind of suspects. They're talking dragons that they're companions with. It's hilarious. It's a good time. Definitely a new favorite series that I've discovered and one I want to catch up on in 2023. We will see how I do with that, but I love this. Next question is, what is your favorite first book in a series that you read this year? And again, I have a lot of options for that one, but I settled on This Vicious Grace by Emily Thede, which really surprised me. This is YA fantasy. There is like a found family vibe in here. There is like the bodyguard romance trope happening. The world is really interesting. The politics are really interesting. We're following a young girl who is kind of like the savior in this town, but her touch kills. She's supposed to be able to connect with different members of the community, and harness their powers and they become really strong, but she doesn't know how to do it in a way that's safe, because everybody that she's tied to, she ends up marrying these people. Everybody she's tied to, she ends up killing them with her strength and this bond. But so people stop like believing in her, and it's really her fight for survival at this point, and then the connections she makes with this bodyguard and then the people around her. And it's actually kind of got that charm to it and it's a really intense situation. And we are getting the second book next year. I'll talk about that in a future question, but I love this. You'll see this in my top 10, spoiler alert, because this has stayed with me. It has surprised me. I've recommended it to people who have loved it. Maria from Maria might read this on my recommendation, and we talk about it quite a bit, and that just makes me so happy. So love this. I love this Fairy Loot edition. I'm just going to show you. It's just so pretty. So I'll probably have to see if Fairy Loot's doing the sequel as well, because I just can't get over how gorgeous this book is and how much I love the content inside. What is the first book in a series you read this year that you think should have been a standalone, not a series? And I was torn on this one, but I really do think that this is my answer. And it's sad because, again, this is going to be a book that you're going to see on my top 10 list. And this is The Goblin and the Jinni by Helene Wecker. And as much as I did enjoy the sequel, The Hidden Palace, it came out 9 years later, and I don't think we needed it. I think if you read and loved this and you're happy with that, you can treat this as a standalone. The ending wraps up. There are some story threads with like she's more than a side character, but she's not really a main character. Sophia, or Sophie, you do get more answers to her storyline. So if that's really bothering you, maybe pick up The Hidden Palace. Or if you just really want to be back with Helene Wecker's writing, it's worth picking up, because that's why I picked it up. I love her writing, I love her research, but I don't feel like I became any more connected to the characters. I actually preferred their story arcs in the first book. I felt like some of the things that happened in the first book were kind of undone in the second one. Their bond isn't as strong in the second one. We don't get as much of them together. So I just don't think it was necessary. I don't think I would recommend running out and reading the sequel to this unless you just miss this world. But even if you read this 9 years ago, I might just recommend rereading this instead, to be honest with you. Even though I give The Hidden Palace 4 stars, it's just not one that I think was necessary, though I enjoyed it. Do you know what I mean? I hope you understand what I'm saying. This book is a favorite of all time now. I just love this. The next question is, what is your most overhyped series of the year? And I do have an answer for that. It is the Memoirs of Lady Trent series. I did this for a read along with my bookish friends, and I'll forever be grateful for this series, because this is the series that brought us together. We all just kind of met on a Discord and decided we wanted to read this, and then we became close through the live shows, and that's who I do my book checkout book club with. So like, I've become close with this group. So I'm gonna keep the series for the nostalgia of that. But overall, this was a disappointment. I know a lot of people love this. I've seen these around for years. I've had the Natural History of Dragons on my shelves for eons. I was glad I finally got to it. I actually enjoyed this first book quite a bit. I thought it did some interesting things. The second book was okay, but it was just more of the same of the first book. And then, is this the third one? This third book was awful. I had a lot of issues with this. If you really want to hear all the issues that come up in this one, I would check out Sarah's channel, Brighton Bookish. Actually, they have a whole video on why you shouldn't read this series. I'm gonna link that down below. They stopped after that, but we continued, and actually, The Labyrinth of Drakes is my favorite of the series. I thought that this went into some interesting places. I thought we were getting set up for a really epic conclusion. We got to the conclusion within the sanctuary of Wings, and I hated it. I was so disappointed with the direction this went. I couldn't believe that this is the build-up that we were getting to. So I was mad. We were all mad about it in the end. So that became very disappointing at the end of the day. Though I'm happy to have read it and that it led me to form these connections on BookTube. But overall, not a series I'll talk about much. I'll just keep it for the nostalgia factor. The next question is, what is the series you're going to DNF this year? And that is The Falconers by Elizabeth May. I wanted to love this because this cover is cool. I've heard great things about this. I really liked like the Scotland setting. I liked the whole idea of this, and objectively I think this is a good book. This just led me to an epiphany, and it's something you will see from my shelves, is that I don't love fae stories. I don't often give fae stories anything higher than a 3-star. This was like a 2.5 for me. It's just, I don't know what it is about fae that I don't connect with, and I want to because there's so many interesting sounding fae stories out there. It's just not something that works for me. This really highlighted that for me. These books just get bigger and bigger, I think, so it was better for me to just DNF it. I know somebody who's gonna love this, and I will unhaul this and give it to them pretty soon, but it is sad because I really did think the world was interesting and the magic and everything and the mystery, but faes, I just don't connect with them, so I'll just have to live with that. What was your favorite series finale or your least favorite series finale? And I'm gonna answer both of these. Of course, it's a duology because that is my sweet spot with series, but it's just true. My favorite series to a finale was A Prayer for the Crying Shy by Becky Chambers. As far as I know, this is a duology, and that's what it says online. I love more because I just think these are so sweet and wholesome and charming, and I just adore Becky Chambers. By the way, this is a good time to announce this and let you know that the Book Checkout Book Club's pick for January is my choice. I'm hosting it on my channel, and it is A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, which is a book I adore. It's one of my favorite of all times. I'm the only one in the group that has read it, and I'm so nervous, but I'm so excited. So if you want to join us for that, I'll leave all the info you need down below. But back to this charming book by Becky Chambers. This is a sequel to Song for the Wild Built. This is the Monk and Robot series. I actually think this one was better, even though I love the first one as well. This is following a monk and a robot, and just like humans and robots have lived apart for many years. These two find each other. It's about the monk introducing the robot to humanity and the questions that come up in that. And actually the world that they live in is not our own. It's very different. They have a different way of currency that is happening there, and this is very idealistic, but I actually loved that about it. It's good escapism for me, but I know it's not for everybody, but I just thought this was quite beautiful. Definitely my favorite finale to a series this year. And then my least favorite, I don't even think I've talked about this on my channel because I was gonna save it for my summer of sequels wrap up, and then I never ended up doing that video because it would just be me trashing a bunch of books, and I don't think I really learned much through that process. So we'll try that again next summer. But this is Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. And I'm starting to wonder if Tessa Bailey's not the author for me. I'm thinking maybe It Happened When Summer was like my one favorite of hers, and I'm just not gonna love anything else. There's some, like Love Her or Lose Her I thought was fun. I have it on my shelf, but not fall in love with fun. But Hook, Line, and Sinker I actively did not like, which is so upsetting because I loved the setting from the first book. I loved Hannah and Fox in the first book, but having them as main characters was infuriating. Living inside their heads, it was infuriating for me. Fox understood his conflict, but it was like so frustrating, and it's just one of these situations where you want these characters to talk, to get some help. Obviously Fox has some deep-seated issues about the way others view him that he needed to work out, and they were just ignoring it all, pushing against it, thinking certain things about themselves, and they were just so frustrating to read about. There were not enough Brandon and Piper cameos for me, not enough stuff set at sea for me. I wasn't as invested in Hannah's work issues as I wanted to be. I wanted more of her relationship with Piper, to be honest with you. I don't know, it just didn't work for me, and I'm so sad about it, but I'll always keep that first book. I'll always treasure that first book. I loved that, but maybe that stems from my love of Schitt's Creek. I am wearing Schitt's Creek socks right now, and I have a Schitt's Creek advent calendar, and Piper is based off Alexa from Schitt's Creek, so I might have some bias there, and that's just the kind of character I like. But Hook, Line, and Sinker just was not it for me. What was the biggest cliffhanger you had in a series this year? And there weren't a ton looking back on it, and I don't even know if you would call this a cliffhanger. It's more of a like WTF ending, and this is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. I actually think that this was built up to be a bigger cliffhanger than we got, but the ending felt so abrupt that I was left feeling disoriented, and I don't know what that's about, but it does make me want to pick up the second book and see what's gonna happen from here. But I wouldn't go into this expecting like this explosive, epic cliffhanger. It's just more of a like, okay, what just happened? I'm so confused, it's over. That kind of vibe that you get from this. But again, Book Checkout Book Club, I'll talk about them all the time. We just did a live show where we discussed this book, very mixed opinions. I will leave that linked down below if you want to hear it all. There's some passionate debates in there, and that was so much fun. The next question is the one that I cannot answer, but I would love to know your answers to this because I'm not aware of a lot of these. And that is, what is your best spin-off series of the year? I haven't read like the huge epics, so Robin Hobb or Brandon Sanderson or any of that, so I'm not reading like these spin-off series, but if you have any that you would recommend to me, I'd love to know that, because it's just not like a world that I'm familiar with all these spin-offs and things like that. But I would love to know your answer to that question. And then the next question is one I have a million answers to, and if you watch any of my new releases videos, you know how obsessive I get about new releases. So this question is, what is your most anticipated next book in a series that you need to read this year that will come out next year, that you read this year that will come out next year? And so of course I have the sequel to This Vicious Grace, and that is This Cursed Light. So excited about that. I used to talk about all the time, and I haven't mentioned them in a while, but I still love them. Those like remixed YA books where they take classics and make them more diverse and YA, and I've just been loving those. And this one is Teach the Torches to Burn. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. I'm really excited about that. There's also a Jekyll and Hyde one we're getting next year that I'm excited about. And then also the sequel to Blood Scion is War Widow. Can't wait for that. Of course, we got the third book in the Jasmine Throne series. There are so many that I can't even tell you all of them, but I didn't make a video, but I made a blog post about my most anticipated sequels, so I will leave that link down below. Lots of things in the description for you to check out today, but I've got lots to say. What is your most anticipated series to catch up with next year based on what you read in the series this year? Or what is the series you're most excited to stay caught up with next year based on what you read in the series this year? So obviously, this is one that I'm excited to catch up on. And of course, T. Kingfisher. This is Clockwork Boys, and it's the Clock Tower War series. I've only read book 1, which was such a mistake because the way these are written, it's like 2 books split up. So I still need to read the second book very badly. But I was reading the first book during the T. Kingfisher readathon. It was the last book I picked up, and I had read 5 T. Kingfisher books that week, and I was kind of burnt out on them. And then I just haven't returned to it, and I need to because I want to read that. Speaking of spin-offs, this is a good one because there are 3 series within this world that T. Kingfisher made. So that duology I want to finish. Then there's Sword Heart that's connected to that. And then there's like the Paladin series. Paladin Grace, I think, is the first one. And they're all in the same universe. So I want to get through all of those next year. Then it's, what is your favorite series you finished this year? And I'll be honest, I finished a few series, but none stood out to me really. And I didn't want to repeat answers, but it's just the truth. And of course, it's the Monk and Robot series. I've already raved about that in this video. But this series just has my heart, this duology. So I had to repeat my answers for this one, or else I'd be lying, because this is the best series I finished this year. What is your favorite episodic series of the year? And I think Cozy Mysteries in and of themselves are episodic because they read like standalones. You have a case that all concludes in one book. I think that's true for a lot of like these murder mysteries or mysteries in general. But my favorite Cozy Mystery of the year, that's not Breaking Bad, because that could also work for this, I just love that series, is In the Company of Witches by Arlie Wallace. And this is the perfect book to read in fall, but I think you can read it any time of year. And this is a cozy mystery with witches, and in this one we are following a woman who has moved back into her aunt's B&B after her husband dies. She is a witch, but she is having an issue with her magic since her husband died. Her magic is that she can speak to ghosts, but she can't speak to her husband. And somebody is murdered at the B&B. Her aunt is being framed for it, and she has to go out and find what happens. And we get that all wrapped up in a nice bow by the end of this, but it leaves enough questions, and you can see the relationship progression that might happen in future books. And I do have the next book ready to go, but I think the series is really fantastic. And if you're into like episodic books, mysteries in particular, I highly recommend this one. This is an Evanfall Witches B&B mystery, book 1, and there's a great like crow animal companion as well. What is a series that you finally bailed on after holding on to it for a long time? And I hate to say this, and I've already unhauled this series, but it is the Red Rising trilogy. I liked the first book fine. I liked Mustang. I liked the whole setup. I hated Darrow, and then it got worse in the second book, Golden Sun. I finished it. I just thought he got even worse. I hated living inside of his head. I've said this many times. This year I thought, okay, I own Morning Star. I will try it. No, I didn't last long. I couldn't do it. I looked up spoilers. I'm happy. I unhauled those. What is the series that you were most surprised that you liked this year? And I know that I'm talking about so many first books in a series, but this is just what I do. So here is Unconquerable Sun. And to be fair, there's only 1 book out, and I do have an e-arc of the second, but the second book is 800 pages, and that is scary, but I will get to it. But Unconquerable Sun by Kate Elliott was again one of the choices for the book checkout book club, and we all voted on it. I voted for something different, I think I did. So I was definitely reluctant to pick this up. I've never read anything by Kate Elliott. I do love sci-fi, but not this kind of pretty epic sci-fi typically. But I loved this. I thought there were some fantastic discussions in here, some really epic battle scenes, some great found family. There were so many tropes in here that I liked. Took me by complete surprise. Again, this is one that we had mixed opinions on in the book club, but I personally loved it. Can't wait to continue, even though the next book is 800 pages. 2 more questions, but only one that I can answer, and that is, what is this series that you meant to catch up with on this year but didn't? And again, hundreds, so many, but the main one is the Greenbone Saga. I loved Jade City. I don't know what I'm doing with myself. I've had both of these books for ages. Jade War, Jade Legacy. I don't know why I haven't got to it. Maybe the size of this, the hype behind it. I'm so scared. I've heard some mixed things about Jade War, something that happens in here. I don't know, I just think I'm scared of them. And I just have to stop. So if you have a system for like tracking series or motivating yourself to read series, if you've like cracked the code, please give me some advice. I will take any advice you have for me because I need to get to this. I need to finish the 5th season series. There's so many that I have. I can't even think of them all on the top of my head, but there's so many I meant to get to this year that I just haven't. And the last question is, what is a series that you think is greater than the sum of its parts? And so I think that is maybe all the books individually weren't stellar, but as a whole you thought it did something pretty interesting. And honestly, I just don't have a answer to that question because I haven't finished enough series to tell you. And like the one series that I can think of is the Memoirs of Lady Trent series, and I actually think that as a whole it was worse than the sum of its parts. That there were 2 books in there that I thought were really well done, but as a whole it was disappointing. So then the other series I've read and loved, I thought all the books were great on their own. So I just don't have an answer for that. But if you do, I think that's a really interesting question, something I would love to know more about. So if you do have an answer to that, let me know. Let me know if you're a better series reader than I am, or if you relate to me in any way. Thanks again for your support. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.